All right, folks, I'm going to give you a little breakdown of a tabletop media player I made just a few months ago. I'll go over the components that I used, what style box I put them in, and some of the accessories that I purchased with it. But I give you a breakdown of also some measurements and my overall thoughts too. So my design goals were to keep it small, almost like a Bose wave radio kind of size here. Lightweight, using quarter-inch material all the way around. Cedar planks for the middle and MDF for the top. Uh, 0.04 cubic feet per speakers, and I did divide them. Actually, sealed them off from each other with 11 and a half inch port length tuned to 66 hertz, which is the tuning frequency for the box and the woofer. Anyway, did seal off the amp section, so this is a sealed compartment. Ran the wires through and sealed them up with some hot glue. In the back, I did add in an antenna connector with a 3.5 millimeter connector and the power socket, but basically kept it open ended. I've used this media player in another project of mine, and I was impressed. For just $13, it actually performs really well. For the drivers, I use some Dayton Audio ND65 8 ohms. This little amp is 25 watts per channel at 4 ohms, so you could probably cut that in half, roughly 12.5 watts per driver on this. They have a nice little small magnetic structure in the back for good tight compartments. And again, I tuned them to what the online specs at Dayton Audio says for 0.04 cubic feet for 66 hertz. The size, they call it a 2.5 inch driver. When you actually measure it up compared to other Dayton Audio, I'm getting about 2 1/8 inch. You compare it to some of their real 2.5 inch ones. This is definitely a good quarter of an inch larger comparative. So my guess is because it's over 2 inches, they're just run it as a solid 2.5 inch, but it's definitely smaller than their other 2.5 inch drivers. Even the cutout size is too. But good, well-rounded, extended range driver. I did open up the back round over the speaker openings a little bit more because the vents between the cone and the basket are pretty small on this driver, and so you make sure you open up the space behind it. Just a little tidbit on what's good for large woofers is always applicable to small woofers. This is the little Dayton Audio ND65 8 ohm, and I'm making a little MP3 radio with it. And if you put this woofer into a woofer opening hole, you will kind of see the gap for the air to go in the box is pretty small just because this woofer is enclosed. The basket covers a lot. There is a venting pole out the back, but right around the woofer, you've got sharp edge that might cause some diffraction. And so, what is a possibility that we usually do for the larger woofers definitely presents itself for the smaller ones. A little quarter-inch round over, pop the same woofer in, and around the back, you can kind of see it really opens up that gap between the basket and the woofer cone itself there. So hopefully this will prevent a little bit of the fraction difference. And I know on such a small woofer, maybe it will be minimal, but every little bit helps. The media player amp unit, like I said, I've used before, is available at Parts Express too. I think it's still $13. Um, the great thing is it's got a display on it. They have a lot of other offerings that are higher quality and stuff, but I like the fact that you've got the display and all the inputs and everything built in. Makes it a little bit simpler for an installation like this. Again, online they rate it as 25 watts times 2. That's in the 4 ohms. These speakers, I was thinking just trying to keep something easy to drive. These are 8 ohms, but They say it can do 25 watts on 4 ohms there. It does have a little connection point for an FM antenna, and on the bottom is the speaker connections, power connections, and everything. The chip doesn't have a heat sink, but it sounds like for the power that it gives out that maybe it's not needed. There are some connections for some other auxiliary things here too that I didn't play with, but I did hook up the FM and obviously used all the features on the front. The wires that are sent with it, you've seen a few people complain about this. These are pretty small gauge things. I'd say maybe 22 gauge, maybe 24 gauge is pretty thin stuff. The connector is nice and convenient, but getting this connected to, I had to use some longer wire runs, and it was a little tricky soldering to the small wire, but that comes with a little piece of wire for the FM too. I tinkered with different lengths of that. I ended up running an antenna outside, and it's adequate. It's doing the job here. There's also little little lights for the kind of the volume of the source there, and they actually the lights EQ kind of respond to the music. It's not just randomly blinking, and so that does come in handy. It does come with 6 EQ presets. I kind of labeled them here: normal, pop, rock, jazz, classical, and the last one looked like the word Q. I didn't understand it, but most of them are kind of garbage. I leave it on normal for 90%. Pop is kind of useful. It seems to do kind of a V curve and either lower the mid-range or raise the bass and treble. And like I said, the rest are kind of garbage there. The digital inputs tend to sound better than the radio and the auxiliary input. I did both the TF card and USB. They recommend 32 kilobyte or gigabytes or less cards with this. I also noticed some stability problems when I was using it with newer thumb drives that had exFAT file kind of setups on them. When I changed the file setup to just FAT32, the unit was more stable. So there's a couple of online programs that allow you to change your thumb drive and stuff over to a different filing system. And FAT32 MP3s seem to be the most stable. I tried Waves, I tried some other FLAC files and other things like that, and MP3 FAT32 files seem to do really well. It also has a feature and you'll see this on the breakdown instructions, that you can do long press, short press for changing folders and all that stuff. I could not get it, the folder situation, the thing. Basically, if I put it on the drive, even if I put it in a folder and stuff, it just came up as the next song and stuff. So it did play and everything, but somebody else will have to kind of help me out on how the folder system works. But overall, like I said, good little amp for $13 with the remote, with all the inputs on the faceplate. Even comes with 2 little plugs to cover up the screws. Is very convenient there, and I can recommend it for little projects like this. The power supply recommendations by Parts Express, they had a 15 volt switching, I think 3 amp power supply, a little bit more on the expensive side. I did have one on hand. I did try it with this unit. I think because I'm running 8 ohm drivers here, I'm not even needing to push it anywhere near what that power supply did. I even brought it down as low, just doing some of the basic math here, just a 12 volt and a 2 amp power supply, and it powered it up fine, and I had no problems with it. I found for roughly the same price one online for a 12 volt 5 amp power supply, and I've kept it with that. It was roughly $10 online. The overall price, you're looking at about $67 for everything in here. These are about $22 each. This was $13. This was $10. I'll include in the video description little extras that I put in there with the antenna and the connectors in the back. But roughly $67. 11.5-inch ports do give out more bass than this is rated for, and I'll explain some of the limitations of the project in a minute. I do have two gripes with the amp media player unit here. The main one, and I've had it with another similar unit that I use. There's no on and off switch. The only way to power this thing on and off is with the remote, and they have this little feature on there that if you happen to lose the remote, you can power it on by unplugging it and plugging it back in. The problem is if you ever have a power surge or power goes out, this thing will come on. It does have a memory. It will come on whatever the last song was in the last source you were, but it will come on with that power surge. So on and off switch on the unit would be nice and convenient to where you won't have to worry about that. Probably the bigger issue that maybe affects people purchasing this is the listed frequency response. Parts Express listed as 130 hertz to 18,000 hertz. If you research similar models online, they will list it as 20 to 20. I needed to do some measuring just to see how much of what I was hearing was the drivers or the amp, and I did take some REW kind of measurements here, and I think what Parts Express posted as their measurements is pretty accurate. I am kind of helping the bass a little bit with these ports, but overall you can kind of see my findings here. The green trace is recorded 6 inches at stereo through the 3.5 millimeter input there. I wish I could have figured out a way to work it through the USB, but I didn't I wasn't able to get that to work. So everything's going through the 35 millimeter. I think the sound quality through the digital inputs is better on this. So, but if somebody else knows how to wire it for testing, I appreciate you just showing me in the comments maybe. But the green trace is in stereo at 6 inches away with the REW measurement. It does start rolling off noticeably around 100 hertz and so forth there, and it totally drops pretty straightforward down 10 dB down at 60 hertz, 50 hertz. And so the yellow trace is something I just wanted to try. I actually disconnected one of the speakers and did the same signal again. Again, the difference here is just two speakers are louder than one. The interesting thing is up here at the top end where we notice where the yellow trace actually stays extended a little bit more with one speaker. And my guess is this is cancellation due to these speakers being so close together. So if you're using this amp or making a boombox kind of setting here, maybe my guess is cancellation from left speaker to right speaker could be happening, and the yellow trace actually looks a little better on the high end and does get up closer to that 16, 18 kilohertz with one speaker playing there. But again, with the right box and port, I think I am getting a little bit better than that 130. And this is audible bass in here. You can really kind of hear this little guy thump. I will close out with a little demo, and I recorded it with, again, my Audio-Technica mic and my Tascam digital recorder that does a little better than cell phone. And it's about probably 14 inches away from both speakers playing. And I hope you enjoy, and I've enjoyed the project.